Hey class, it's time to get back at it. This is part 2 of the chapter 10 video. Hopefully we'll be able to get it done with 3 videos, so this is number 2 of chapter 10. So let's jump right into it. Let's start with slide number 16. We stopped at 15 in the previous video. The title of this one is called India as a Cultural Mosaic. So just thinking about that title, what's a mosaic? That's going to be a piece of art that's put together with a lot of different smaller pieces. So that really describes what India is as an area. So India became an intersection for trade, migration, and culture of Afro-Eurasian peoples. When you think about the location of India, India is a peninsula. Peninsula means that 3 sides of it are covered in water. So because of its location, it's in a really awesome location for trading, for interaction, for movement, for migration from people who are either moving from Africa into Asia or from Asia into Africa and into the Europe as well. All right, so still to this day, it has the second largest population in the world behind China. So during that time period, 1000 to 1300, India has the second largest population in the world. It still has the second largest population in the world, and the country that has the number 1 population in the world is going to be China back then and China to this day. So we're going to see Turks are going to bring Islam into India. So going back to that previous slide, thinking about the Islamic world. So the Turks are going to bring Islam into India with their trading. So exploration, trading, religion comes next. And they're going to add to the ethnic and religious mixing that's already taking place and already happening. So India does not have a dominant religion at this time period. They don't have a dominant political system. So what you're going to see is that it's going to be quite a mixture or quite a mosaic that's going to turn into the Indic culture or into India eventually. So prior to the Turks' arrival, India is going to be splintered among the Rajas, and Rajas are going to be the people who control the different areas. So Rajas are going to solicit support for their rule among the Brahmins, who use this opportunity to spread their faith. So we're going to see unification again of politics and religion. So we're talking about a unification of politics and trade and how you want to have a government back your trading. Well, now you're going to have a combination or a collaboration between government and religion. And if you're a religious scholar, you want that because that means you have political backing and payment to take care of your needs. If you're a government, you want the backing of the higher authority so you can have that divine right, that mandate of heaven, things like that give you the official godlike power to rule over an area. All right, so we're going to see that the people in India before could not resist the Turkish warlords. One of the reasons why they can't resist them is because they don't have an established or dominant political system. So therefore, it's going to be really hard to withstand or resist being taken over by an invading group like the Turks. All right, so one way we're going to see that is going to be with Mahmud of Ghazni. He's going to launch many expeditions from the Afghan heartland into northern India. And he's going to be really eager to win status within Islam. So he wants to rise up. We're going to see, once again, a combination between the political system and the religious system. So what he's going to do, he's going to make his capital Ghazni. I think that's how you pronounce it, Ghazni. A center of Islamic learning. So that's going to be a place where a lot of Islamic learning takes place. A lot of status and influence and power is going to be bestowed in that area. And so you see again that we have a combination between politics and religion, and it's being used to take over new areas of expansion in the Islamic world. The next person we have is going to be Muhammad Ghuri. He's going to lead another wave of Islamic Turkish invasion from Afghanistan across the Delhi region in northern India. So Delhi, if you guys know anything about India today, they have a city there named New Delhi. It's in the same location or around the same location as Delhi from previous times. Okay, so we're going to see wars are going to rage between the Indus and the Ganges rivers until one by one, all the way to the lower Ganges River, the fractured kingdom of the Rajas toppled. So we're going to see literally the Turks are going to come in and invade and take over, and there's going to be, like I said, little fighting back, little resistance, little will. So what's going to happen? The Turks are going to introduce their own customs while accepting local social structure, such as the hierarchical Varna system. So we're going to see hierarchical Varna system. So once again, we're going to see another caste system being implemented, one that started off in India, and then we're going to see it being reinforced by the Turkish invaders who are coming in. The Turks are going to construct grand mosques and build impressive libraries where scholars could toil and share their wisdom with the court. So we're going to see different things being brought in that are not necessarily going to be known as Indic culture, but they're going to eventually be a part of Indic culture because of the influences that are going to come in and merge together. And once again, we're going to see India as a cultural mosaic. So if we're going to move on to the map so we can see South Asia in 1300, you can see right here that India is a peninsula. 3 sides of it are surrounded by water. You can also see the number of trade routes that are coming into India and leaving India as well. So you can see who's going to control the area. So we have the Delhi Sultanate is going to control the area. And by 1335, they're going to control most of the area, or most of India, excuse me. All right, and the southernmost parts and some of the other border portions are going to be Hindu areas that are not going to be taken over by Muslims. All right, so the Delhi Sultanate. So that was a precursor to what's going to happen in the next few slides. The Delhi Sultanate is going to be a dynasty. It's going to last from 1206 to 1526. It's going to bring political integration. So one more time, India does not have an established political system. They have a lot of different fragmented, compartmentalized groups that are controlling themselves with different rajas or different leaders that are taking over them. But we're going to see the Delhi Sultanate is for once going to bring political integration into India. It's going to strengthen the cultural diversity and tolerance that was already a hallmark of Indian society. So being tolerant, being accepting of different cultures is going to be really important part of Indian culture or Indic society because of part of its location, geography. So once again, it's a peninsula, and it's a peninsula that's attached to Asia, but it drops down into closer to Southeast Asia, and then also it's not very far from Africa and the Middle East or the Arabian Peninsula. So just based on that, they're going to be more tolerant because they're going to see a lot more interaction from a lot more different groups, a lot more different people who look different, act different, eat different foods, practice different religions, have different political systems, and things like that. So we're going to see what's going to happen with the Delhi Sultanate. How are they going to unify? They're going to start to build more palaces and create more government-backed building projects. All right. So we're going to see palaces that are going to be being built and more government-backed buildings. Okay, so these mosques, some of the mosques are going to become displays of Indian architectural taste adopted by Turkish newcomers. So we're going to see that fusion between Indian or Indic culture and the Turkish invaders who are coming in, and that's going to create some of your Delhi culture. All right, so we're going to see also that the sultans, whenever we see sultans, that's going to be Muslim, a Muslim dominant area. So the sultans are not going to force their subjects to convert. So just like in other parts of the Islamic heartland, they're going to be known for being very tolerant and allowing you to continue practicing whatever religion of your choice. So that could be Hinduism, that could be Buddhism. In this area, you're not really going to find too much Christianity or Judaism, but you're going to find Hinduism, a little bit of Buddhism, and then Islam, obviously, from the people who are coming in. All right, so because of that, because they didn't force people to convert, Islam is never going to be fully dominant in South Asia, and it's still not dominant to this day. All right, and so they're also going to allow or permit smaller areas to develop commercial life on their own outside of the government connection. All right, so the next question for the next slide is, what was India? India is going to be the most diverse and potentially most tolerant region in Afro-Eurasia. So once again, because of its location, there are lots of different type of people who are coming and interacting in India specifically. So you have Chinese people, you have Middle Eastern people, you have European people, you have African people. All of these people are going, North African and East African are all going to come and merge and meet up in India. So they're going to have to be tolerant, because dealing with that means you're going to deal with Christians, but Buddhists, Hindus, and a vast number of other religions, which means you have to be tolerant of those people and accepting of people kind of as they are. So it's going to be a very impressive, but it's going to be very fragile mosaic of culture, religions, and ethnicities. So in the beginning, it's really not tightly held together. It's just, hey, these are the things that this area is known for, not that India, the country that exists today, that we talk about today, they're known for certain things, but back then it was the Indic region, or that whole peninsula is going to be known for certain things. Okay, Turks are going to assimilate, but they're going to retain their Islamic beliefs and steppe ways. So by assimilate, I just read on page 370 how we're going to see the Turks adopt some of that Indic architecture and kind of make it their own and have government backing to make it even bigger than it was previously. So they're going to assimilate, but they're going to retain their Islamic ways and their Islamic beliefs and their steppe ways. So steppes are going to be their nomadic ways and how they were accustomed to moving around and handling the landscape. Local populations are going to embrace some of the Turkish ways, like what they wear, but they're going to reject other parts of it. So multiple languages are going to flourish. So although the Sultan spoke Turkish languages, they regarded Persian literature as a high cultural achievement and made Persian their courtly and administrative language. Meanwhile, most of their Hindu subjects spoke local languages and adhered to the regulations of the Varna system of hierarchy, or the caste system. So we're going to see a mixture of languages that are going to flourish. So you're not going to have one dominant language. Like when we think about North America, usually you're going to say Spanish, English, or French, depending on what country you're in. If you're in Canada, it might be French or English. If you're in America, it's probably going to be English or Spanish. And then if you're in Mexico, it's more than likely going to be Spanish. So just thinking about what languages that we have that are easily identifiable, you can see that there's a difference today in how languages are kind of brought about. So back then, they allowed, or they had multiple languages that they conducted business in. Today, it's more of a single or just one language that people speak for the most part in most of their government business. All right, so religious diversity is going to continue, but the rulers are going to contact the jizya. So once again, that tax, you can be whatever you want to be as long as you pay money for it. Or you can convert to Islam and not have to pay any tax. So if you want to be Hindu, awesome, pay a tax. You want to be Buddhist, pay a tax. You want to be Christian, pay a tax. Whatever you want to be, if it's not Muslim, you got to pay a tax, but you can be it, okay? All right, so when the Vedic Brahmanism evolved into Hinduism, it absorbed many doctrines and practices from Buddhism. So once again, we're seeing that India is more tolerant, it's more blending, it's more of a cultural mosaic or a mixing of things. But also we're seeing how Hinduism and Buddhism are both universalizing religions because they're adaptable to their subjects no matter what location or region that they're in. So we're going to see Buddhism and Hinduism are going to become so similar that the Buddha is going to be considered a Hindu deity. So one more time. The Hinduism and Buddhism are so similar that the Buddha is going to be adopted and accepted as a Hindu deity. So with the Turk invasion in the 13th century and the destruction of major monasteries, Buddhist followers were more easily assimilated into Hindu populations or convert to Islam. So because the Buddhists were not able to practice in their monasteries the way they wanted to because of invasions, they traded Buddhism for either Islam or for Hinduism, since Hinduism was much easier for them to just kind of go directly into, or they could convert to Islam. So India is going to emerge as one of the 4 major cultural spheres during this time period. Remembering that we have the Islamic world, we have India, we have China, and we have Europe. Those are considered the 4 spheres of the world between 1000 and 1300. So we haven't forgotten about Africa and we haven't forgotten about the Americas, but they're going to be slightly less developed because they lack that that fluvial society or that fluvial area, that river that will allow them to rapidly create agricultural growth and then population growth as a result. All right, so we're leaving India. So we've talked about a lot of different regions. We've talked about the Islamic world. We've talked about India, which covers parts of the Islamic world. And then we're also going to talk about China, and we're going to see how, once again, the Islamic world is going to come into China too. All right, so the song China, insiders versus outsiders. So I said this previously, China was not about outsiders. China was like, we are fine. We don't need you. We function perfectly. We are amazing. But when it comes to that money, China is going to kind of open up its boundaries and open up its borders to do more trading. So China is going to be the preeminent world power in 1000 CE. China is going to maintain its power or its dominance until almost the middle of the 1600s or the middle of the 17th century. So that is going to be a pretty long time of being the number one power and economic power in the world. So once again, so China is going to be the preeminent or one of the most important or most powerful world powers in 1000 CE. So in 907, we're going to see the Tang Dynasty is going to split into rival kingdoms. So just like a lot of places, they're going to have a hard time maintaining a large geographic area, and it's going to lead to some turmoil, which leads to splits and leads to eventual more culture being developed and more politics being developed as well. So we're going to have Zhao Kuang Yin is going to end fragmentation in 1960 CE, and he's going to assume the mandate of heaven for the Song Dynasty. So the Tang Dynasty is going to fall off, and the Song Dynasty is going to rise up in the ashes and be reunified in 1960. So 960. So in 907, China is going to split, and then about 50 plus years later, they're going to come back together as the Song Dynasty. And that's going to last for about 300 years from 960 to 1279. All right, if you're following along on the book, we're in page 372. Now would be a great time to take a break. This video is going to run close to 45 minutes, so I think you should get up, you should stretch, you should look down at your phone if you need to, maybe get a snack, and then definitely take some deep breaths. Come back to this video maybe in about 5 minutes, in about 10 minutes, so your brain can process and digest what you have just taken in. See you soon. Get up. Like for real. Get up. Economic and political developments. China's commercial revolution during this period had agrarian roots. So agrarian, whenever you see that AGR, you have to know that it stands for agriculture. So agriculture benefited from new metalworking technologies. China's farmers were able to employ new and stronger iron plows, and they're going to use water buffaloes to power those. So it's going to be animal powered, but also mechanized in terms of how they're developing their new technology to benefit them. And whenever you have a boom in agriculture or a technology change, technological advancement, you're always going to see a population change. Population is going to increase whenever you have more food around. And usually when you have all these new bright brains, you're able to kind of function in society a little bit quicker and make developments quicker as well. So manufacturing is going to flourish. We're going to see gunpowder being developed in the early 10th century. So once again, what are the important things that are going to come out of China? Compass, gunpowder, and the printing press. So we talked about the compass earlier. Here comes gunpowder, and the printing press will come a little bit later. So Song artisans are going to produce lighter, more durable, and more beautiful porcelain. So when we think of China, like your grandma might have a china cabinet, or maybe your mom has a china cabinet. That's going to be her fine porcelain that you probably don't eat off 24/7. So as China creates lighter porcelains, they're able to send them around the world more effectively without risking them breaking, or even just being able to pack more on ships or on whatever cargo that you're taking these things out on, because it's lighter, it's more durable, and it won't break as easy along the way. The Song Chinese brought about the world's first industrial revolution. They're going to produce goods for consumption far and wide. So one more time, they're going to have this population boom. They're going to have more people, more workers who are able to get things done more rapidly and quicker, which means they're going to be like, hey, if we can make money off of selling things that our everyday people use, let's do it. and they're going to. Plus, they're going to have the technology to actually go out and trade in different areas. All right, so the growth of commerce is going to transform the role of money and its worldwide circulation. The Song government is going to mint the first string of currency. So we're going to see like, hey, so if I'm in one area of China and I want to trade with another area of China, how do I do that? In previous times, there really wasn't a way to do that because I don't know what your value is, or maybe your silver coins are bigger than my silver coins. Maybe they weigh more than my silver coins. So how am I going to figure out like whose is worth more or what's equitable or what's fair when I'm trading with you? So they're going to create what's called flying cash. Okay. So that flying cash is going to basically just help out with trading, with banking, with things like that. So for each printed sheet or each dollar or whatever you want to call them during that time, that flying cash, it's going to be backed up in the bank by silver notes. So it has a silver backed system. When America was first started, we had a gold backed banking system. So all the money that we printed out was backed in our banks with gold. That has since shifted over time because there's so many more people, so much more money, and not as much gold as needed to have a gold-backed standard. Okay. Moving on, we're going to finish up the economic and political developments. Governments are going to begin to print notes to pay its bills, and ultimately it's going to lead to runaway inflation. So when you print out a lot of money and you're not controlling the flow of money, that's going to lead to what's called inflation, which means that your money is kind of worthless. It doesn't really have much value to it. So because of that, it's going to lead to an expanded we're also going to see an expanded central bureaucracy. That's going to be because of all the trading happening. So as the trading happens, you have to be able to regulate that, all the people that are around, they need different laws. And China is very, very orderly when it comes to taking care of business and when it comes to their political structure as well. So they're going to have what's called a civil service examination. So that civil service examination, you're going to take that exam, and in some of the older times, the emperor would actually administer the civil service exam, and all those who passed the highest level of the examination were able to get high-ranking jobs inside the government. So, all right. So by 1100. These learned men are going to become China's new ruling elite. So only about 150 plus years or so, we're going to see that people with no power are going to kind of create power by building a government system and building a bureaucracy. And maybe you don't even know what a bureaucracy. The best way I can look at it or tell you about a bureaucracy is looking at King Drew as a bureaucracy. So your bureaucrat, that's going to be your leader. That would be Mr. Brookins. Mr. Brookins, not bureaucrat. Your leader is going to be Mr. Brookins. So after that, who would the bureaucrats be? Who would be the people who are working for the government if he is like the leader? That would be the teachers. Okay. And then you guys would be some of the workers, or maybe even the peasants, depending on how you want to place yourself in the bureaucracy. Okay. All right. So we're going to see that having bureaucrats is going to shift the power from hereditary aristocrat elites to less wealthy but more highly schooled class of scholar officials. So previously, if you had the bloodline, that means that you had everything that you needed. But maybe you weren't the smartest. But now we're going to have the civil service examination, and it's going to make people have to actually learn, actually know things, actually go to school to be a leader in China during this time period. So here's a map of East Asia in 1000, and you can see the Song Empire as it expands and as it moves around, and also continue to see the trade routes that are flowing in and out of the Song dynasty. All right, so China's neighbors. So nomads, all right, those are going to be some of China's neighbors, people moving around, the nomadic cultures. Then we're going to have Japan and Southeast Asia. So as the Song flourished, the nomads on the outskirts focused on their success. All right, so let's go to that. The nomads. So they're going to kind of create their own dynasties, and they're going to adopt Chinese institutions. So these non-Chinese nomads are going to seek to both conquer and copy the China proper. So they want to be like China. They're like, hey, it works. Let's do it. Okay. So they're going to have really sophisticated weapons, but the Song army could not match united nomads on the steppe. So even though the Song want to fight back against the nomads, they're going to be unable to. So what's going to stop the Song from continuing to expand, continuing to be a larger empire? Well, the nomads on the outskirts that are keeping them at bay because they're more highly skilled, more highly trained. They know how to ride horses and shoot bow and arrows, where the Song don't have as much experience riding horses or that same kind of combat. All right, so we're going to see advancements in weaponry are going to be copied by their neighbors. You can't beat people if they have the same exact weapons that you do, but they also know how to ride horses better than you do. All right, so with that, we're going to see that the Song are going to try to pay off the people. They're going to be like, hey, I can't beat you, so I'll pay you, leave me alone. Here's a bribe. Just stay away from my borders. Leave me alone. Don't attack us. But that's going to lead to some economic instability. So because you're paying these people off, you're not going to have enough money to take care of your own bills because you're going to print more money to pay them off, but your money's going to be worthless at that point in time. And it's also going to expose the fact that you have a lot of military weaknesses because these nomads are pretty much controlling you and controlling everything that you do. All right. And so also some of their horse supplies are going to be stopped because of those nomadic people on the borderline. So you're paying them and they're still not allowing you to be free or allowing some of your animals or your weapons or whatever you want to call it to come across. China's neighbors continued. So cultures around China consolidated their own internal political authority and defined their own identities as distinct from China. So Japan, for instance, they're going to be like, I know we stole everything from you, but we're different. Let me tell you how. You have 3 stripes over here. I have 4. See, it's different, not the same. All right, so that's one way we're going to see that. But also, if we look at page 375, you're following along in the book. So China is going to have a long-standing dominance of Chinese ways that's going to remain apparent at virtually every level of Japanese society, and was most pronounced at the imperial court in the capital city of present-day Kyoto, which was modeled after the Chinese city of Chang'an. Outside Kyoto, however, its less China-centered way of life existed and began to impose itself on the center. So if we're looking in the capital city, that's going to be very Chinese. If you're outside of the capital city, that's going to be more of that Japanese influence or culture that's going to rise up. So the 14th century, we're going to have multiple sources. Samurais are first. So first you're going to have samurais. All right, so samurai is going to be a new and important social class that's going to rise up. So beginning in the 14th century, Japan had multiple sources of political and cultural power. So we're going to see that this rise of samurai, so those paid soldiers who are there to protect the country. All right, and so with that, you're going to see multiple sources of political and cultural power start to be developed and created from inside of Japan, so they don't have to look at China and say, hey, China, let's steal your stuff and call it ours. All right, so Southeast Asia is going to become a crossroads for Afro-Eurasian influences. So a crossroads for Afro-Eurasian influences because Southeast Asia are those islands that are just kind of floating below Asia and across from Africa and not too far from Europe. So the Malay Peninsula became home to many entrepôts for trading. So entrepôts, that's going to be a place where you guys come together and have conduct business or trading or refill your supplies or things like that. So one more time, the Malay Peninsula became home to many entrepôts for trading, traders shuttling between India and China, because it was connected to the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean with the South China Sea. So you'll see that in one of the upcoming maps. And we're going to see another place like India where you're going to have a fusion of religio-cultural influences. So Southeast Asia is going to be just like India, which is slightly north of it, and that is going to be a fusion of religious and cultural influences because of all the trading that's happening across Afro-Eurasia. Okay. All right, so we're going to skip over that last point and we're going to move into our map of East Asia. And it's going to be another map, I believe, that follows right behind this one that talks about Southeast Asia. Okay, so East Asia, you can see what is going on in this one. You see some of the original Song Empire with the purple border, and then you also see the area that it's going to lose, in 1126 because they were unable to fight off those nomads. At the top, you see the Mongols in that peach colored. They're coming down. The Mongols are coming, I promise you. All right, so we have Southeast Asia from 1000 to 1300. So you can see Southeast Asia, this is why it's going to be a religious and cultural mosaic or mixture because of its location. It's just kind of hanging out there by China, by India, not too far from Africa, and definitely not that far from Europe as well. So that's why it's going to be a fusion of Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and lots of other different kind of cultures that are going to rise out of that area. So we see all the different empires and kingdoms that are controlling those areas between 1000 and 1300 CE. So what was China? So exchanges with outsiders are going to help develop a Chinese identity as Han. So basically, if you're an outsider, you're not going to identify as Han. But if you're an insider, somebody who you feel like is native or who they feel like is native to China, they're going to say that they're Han. Even to this day, most people in China claim being Han or having Han blood, even though probably not possible. All right, so we're going to see that the outsiders in China are going to always or increasingly be seen as barbarians. So they're not going to act or behave normally. They're not going to have any kind of couth or any kind of respect. So they're going to be seen as barbarians, and nobody wants barbarians. And that's going to play a role in how China interacts with other people or other groups throughout the world, because they're going to be seen as different and barbarians. Even now, China still has a very homogeneous population. Most of the people who are in China are all Asian. You're not going to see a large population of European Americans, Europeans, of Africans, of South Americans or North Americans and things like that, because they're mostly people of Chinese heritage who live there. All right, so with that, we're going to see that the print culture is going to crystallize Chinese identity. So compass, gunpowder, printing press. Printing press is very, 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 very important. Okay, so print culture crystallized a distinct Chinese identity. Of all Afro-Eurasian societies in 1300, the Chinese were the most advanced in their use of printing and book publishing and circulations. Their books established classical Chinese as the common language of the educated classes in East Asia. The Song government used its plentiful supply of paper to print books, especially medical text, and to distribute calendars. The private publishing industry expanded, and printing houses throughout the country produced Confucius classics, works on histories, philosophical treatises, and literature, all of which figured into the civil service examination. So their printing culture meant that people had to read more books if you wanted to be a government agent or government official. So you had to be very learned in the book reading sense if you wanted to advance in China. But because they had more printing skills, that's why people were able to read more books and have more access to more content and knowledge. All right, so all of this is going to, so Buddhist publications are going to also be widely available everywhere. So that's going to help with the spread of Buddhism throughout China, which is now the dominant religion throughout China to this day. All right, and so we're going to see that China is going to be the wealthiest of the four major cultural spheres. So once again, Islamic world, always conquering, always expanding, doesn't have that much money. India, not really unified, doesn't have that much money. Europe can't get into the Asian trading markets as well as they'd like to because they don't have the right trading supplies. Doesn't have that much money. But China has learned how to industrialize, how to manufacture, how to do a lot of things early on. They have a lot of money. So we're leaving China. We've talked about India, the Islamic world, China, and now we're on the last sphere of the world. Christian Europe. We're in the last two slides of the video. So Christian Europe between 1000 and 1300. Europe is going to have intensely localized power. So Europe, what that means is wherever you are, that's who's controlling your area. But they're also going to embrace the idea of a continent called Europe and also being European. So even though they're focused in their specific areas, they're still having a shared bonding and cultural experience because they're claiming to be European, which is going to be different than other parts of the world. They're going to claim sometimes their religions or their dynasties, and not so much like the continent where they came from. So the localization of power, we're going to see that the Franks are going to have some unchallenged rule. So unchallenged ruler, after the collapse of Charlemagne's empire. But they're going to oversee a somewhat fragmented manor-based economy and social structure. So the peasants are going to be subjugated to this knightly class that was the heart of the system that scholars have called feudalism. So feudalism. So that means basically you have peasants who work the land. There are these governors who are controlling the land, and then they give out little parcels of land to peasants to have those peasants work the land. And then those peasants give all of their profits to the governors. Isn't that fun? Isn't that fair? Isn't that amazing? Anyway, so it's going to be called feudalism, and it's going to be backed by agriculture. So if it were not for agriculture, it would be really, really hard to have feudalistic systems. All right, there's going to be a small amount of manufacturing and trading that's going to happen in this feudalistic area of Europe. So we're going to see about 200,000 peasants are going to migrate from the frontiers of Europe to escape their feudal lords. So feudalism is not fun. It is not okay. It is not good at all. So because people are being abused and there's no real way to get out of this caste of being at the peasant level, they're like, I'd rather escape and run away than to continue to be enslaved, essentially. So we're going to see about 200,000 pioneering peasants are going to immigrate from the regions of Belgium, Holland, and northern Germany to the frontiers of Europe, now Poland, the Czech Republic, Hungary, and the Baltic states. So despite the harsh climates and landscape, the area offered a promise of freedom from feudal lords, arbitrary justice, and the imposition of forced labor that peasants had experienced in Western Europe. All right, so that's what's going to happen in that part of Europe. Let's go to Northern Europe. So let's talk about Russia. So Russia is going to model themselves after Byzantium. So after that older Roman Empire, they're going to kind of try to hold on to some of those ways. That's going to be a stark contrast to the other parts of Europe. Even to this day, Russia still does things a lot differently than the other parts of Europe. All right, so its cities are going to be at the crossroads of overland trade and migration. So they're going to be at the crossroads of overland trade and migration. Part of that is because of geography. So if you've ever seen what Russia looks like, it is gigantic, and there are not as many waterways as there are going to be in other places. And because of how high it is in the world, it is always, I won't say always, but it's cold there a lot. Okay. All right. So the cities are not going to be agrarian centers, but they're going to be hubs of expanding long distance trade. So that's, once again, because it's cold up there. It's not going to be as easy to grow things for profit and have large farms that you're able to take care, or you're able to sell your profits and make a large agrarian based economy. So there's going to be more based in trading. That could be animal skins, that could be people, that can be any number of things they're going to be trading. All right, so Kiev is going to become one of the greatest European cities, and it's still one of the largest European cities today. So Russian Christians look to Byzantium and Orthodox of the East rather than the Roman Catholic faith. So they're going to have more of the older Christian viewpoints versus the more modern or adapting Christian viewpoints that were happening with the Roman Catholic faith. So one more time. Russia's going to look to the east and look towards Rome and Byzantium and how they ran their church, and not towards the more modern Roman Catholic faith. So moving on into our last one, we're going to see a map of Latin Christendom. So I'm going to end with this map, but I'm also going to begin the last video with this map too, so we can see what it's talking about and what it's highlighting. So the map's going to be on page 378 and also on the screen right now. So it shows you in waves and in stages how Christianity is going to be spread from stage 1 all the way to stage 4. It also shows you cities and their populations. So ones that have larger than 50,000 people are going to have a red dot, and those with that are important but have a smaller population are going to be seen with a black dot. And if you see purple, that means there's going to be a university present. So you'll see once again that establishing centers of knowledge are going to be important for governments to establish legitimacy, as well as for religions to establish legitimacy as well. So I'm going to stop the video right now. I'm sure this one's also a little bit long. I'm going to incorporate another break into this video like I did in the first video. So I hope you guys took some notes, create some questions for me, and get ready for class when I see you all on Thursday. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.